He could do a wedding every day now if he wanted to because of technology. And you just go, that's what it's all about. Where we saw our value before as an industry and retouching and culling and cropping and all that stuff, right? We don't have to do that anymore.
We don't have to do it anymore.
And that's freeing up our time to deliver stuff that's of true value to our clients. That's why I'm excited.
Hey, Difference Maker. Welcome back to the Difference Maker Revolution podcast. And today we're joined by Ronan and Jeanine. And what are we talking about today, guys?
Oh, Jonathan, it's been an amazing week because you've just come back from Glasgow where you've done Empower Workshop with Steve. I'm sure there's loads of takeaways you want to share. I was on the other side of the pond, the VPPA, and had the honor and privilege of talking to 125 photographers in the room there. And Jeanine has been busy all week just holding the fort together while we were all traveling. So I'm sure there's loads and loads of takeaways that we've got this week.
Not just holding the fort together, Ronan, but elevating it to a new level, right, Jeanine?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was doing. I was elevating, alone with my cup of coffee, staring at the computer, being so sad that you guys weren't there back at me.
And still able to enhance members' businesses. Look at you.
I know. Well, it's amazing when you can focus on the members. Right? So it's funny because I was, I don't have any for the next hour, so let me get into the group and go see who I can connect with, right? Yes. That was my morning.
See, that's the difference between an extrovert and an introvert. The introvert would just crawl into a corner and say, haha, peace. Peace of my own.
You're right. And I'm not on board. I need to go find someone. Yeah.
So, Jono, what was so you were at Empower with Steve for the last week, 3-day amazing workshop with amazing people there learning. So for you, sort of as an observer, right, who's seen the workshop before and all the training, what for you was the biggest takeaway you think those there got?
So I'm not sure I can summarize it into one takeaway because all of the attendees, all the difference makers that were there had, their own kind of unique takeaways. But one thing that stood out for me looking in from the outside was that what was really beneficial for people at the workshop was the practical role plays of like doing discovery calls and getting live feedback on that. So like one of the exercises was, broke up into groups of 3. One person did a call, the other person was the client, one person was the observer, and we had to like take notes on that and then give feedback and talk about it from the client perspective, the person calling, their perspective, what they thought, and then the observer's perspective. And I think what was really useful was being in that structured environment and having that ability to actually role play and do calls, but also get live feedback. And in doing that, naturally with Steve leading that, there were a few tears. We know what he's like with his discovery calls, but I think it was really that practicality, but also there were so many aha moments where people were kind of like, oh, I get it now. I understand what we're doing now. I could see light bulbs going off. So yeah, we can talk to that later, but they were the big things, the big overall takeaways.
So Jono, do you think it was the members that were in attendance? I know a lot of them have been in our circle on and off for a while. Do you think it was a repetition of hearing multiple times, or do you think it was being in person as opposed to online?
That's an interesting question. So I think that when you're at something in person, you don't have other distractions. So you're there, you've committed to being there, and you're fully focused on what you're doing. So I think that helps. But I feel like the people who have done training, there are a good few inner circle members there. And I think what really helped, the people who are inner circle members who turn up to the weekly calls, who have done the amazing training in the inner circle, I felt like they were able to go even deeper at the workshop in terms of understanding and practice. because not only did they learn, new concepts and ideas, but they were better able to deliver on it because they've been exposed to it more. So I don't think one's better than the other. I think the perfect combination is in both. And the more exposure you have to something and the more times you do something, the better you're going to be at it naturally, right? As long as you're getting that consistent feedback. And another takeaway for me is that, there's this weird fear, I think, of not being able to do something perfectly or right. We all have it with everything. And the reality is that nobody does anything perfect or right. And you see it with athletes all the time. You see it with, tennis players, with golfers. These guys will go out and they'll hit tens of thousands of, serves or drives or wedge shots or, play practice sets every single day. And you don't see that. But that is why they're so good. Because every single day they're practicing. And they're putting in the work, and they're constantly focusing on adding those 1% improvements. And it seems like the better that you are as a player in a sport, from my experience looking at it, if you looked at tennis and you looked at, I remember hearing a story that when Roger Federer won like 3 of the 4 Grand Slams one year, he was number 1 in the world. He played in like 17 tournaments, made 16 finals, won like 12 of them, played in all the major tournament finals, and yet still, once that season ended, he was working on finding ways to get better. And I think that mindset, that growth mindset of no matter how good you think you are, how good you become, the best always look for opportunities to improve and are not afraid to fail on their path to success.
What's so interesting, Jonathan, and if I told you guys this story, that's fine, because obviously I didn't tell our podcast audience, but James, he's almost 9, and it was a week or 2 ago. We were driving in the car, and out of the blue, he just asked, "Mommy, what will happen if every day I get a little bit better at what I'm doing?" And I was like, "Well, James, if you're getting better every day with a little bit of purpose, then you're going to be it's going to be amazing. Like, the results will be incredible." And right now he's like working on this YouTube stuff and this game development and so and it is, and every day, and he's almost 9, he's 9, right? So he doesn't have all these years that we have as adults of people telling us we can't do something, or or the knockdowns that you get if you turn in something that's not perfect, and then you feel discouraged and all that stuff that life beats into you. And so to hear like a 9-year-old just, what happens if every day I get a little bit better at what I'm doing? I thought isn't that incredible? Like, for just a kid to come out and ask that question. But as adults, like, what if every day you just get a little bit better, just improve a little bit more, what it can mean at the end of a year.
And at VPPA, Tom and Mario Munoz, great friends, and great wedding photographers and other photographers, they were talking exactly about that too, Jeanine, about that, when they look back on their journey as learning their craft, and, like as young boys, they were going to weddings with their dad, when they were 7 and 8, and they were getting paid with licorice for their day, but they tell the story of, that they didn't get to where they've got to in their business by overnight, right? That it was the constant learning, but the desire to get better, which Jonathan talked to too, right? That they can't, no matter what they achieve with their photography, they're always saying, how can we do this better? And they had this great quote on one of their slides, which is, iron sharpens iron. So they said they actually critique each other's work, and all the photographers who work with them, they critique each other's work, and they have a group together where they're saying, this is what I did. What feedback have you guys got that I could do this better? So that ego of I'm the best is not there, right? It's about iron sharpens iron. We're there to help each other. We're open to constructive feedback. We're willing to grow together and learn together. And I just thought it was a really, really, really good example of what you guys have just talked to there.
Yeah, it is a really good example.
It's interesting that it came up in multiple locations, multiple places with, kids to adults, like, it was fascinating. But it's something that, I read something, you're either, like, there's no such thing as staying stagnant. You're either getting better or you're declining.
Well, especially now, right? Oh my gosh. Like Ronan and I were talking about this yesterday with technology changing as, it used to be, and I think it was one of the keynote speakers at Imaging a few years ago talked about change, and back in the day, like our grandparents' generation, they didn't have to adapt to change if they didn't want to, because change came so slow. It took how long for refrigerators to actually be in people's houses, and then microwaves. And if they didn't want to use a microwave, you didn't have to use a microwave. You know what I mean? So, but now, I mean, at that point, that was 3 years ago. It was 4 years ago. So it was even before AI came, and they were talking about how fast everything has changed with information and social media. Now, oh my gosh, like if you're not staying ahead, you're going to be behind. So the need for learning and constantly improving incrementally every single day, it's not something you can escape.
And it's not just a threat of not doing it, it's the opportunities that are available. Like, what a great time to be alive when all these opportunities, we're not waiting for centuries for an opportunity to arise, right?
Yes.
That every hour there's something new that you can see. And I know that's can cause you maybe to have some anxiety about how do I keep on top of this and all that. But that's where your network comes into, right? And that's when, you're in a network like the Difference Maker Revolution, you're in Inner Circle. Not only are the mentors keeping on top of their area of expertise, right? But the members are also doing it. And there's that sharing of ideas and resources, and I heard something years ago, and it was, 2 heads are better than 1, 3 heads are better than 2, but not 3 heads is not 3 times better than 1. It's 20 times better than 1, So when you start to create a community of people who are open-minded and willing to learn from each other and not be, I'm not telling you that's my secret, it just amplifies that, and we've a couple of 100 members now in Difference Maker Revolution, right, across Impact and Inner Circle. And that community, every day we're told about the power. Oh, Darren jumped on a call with me and helped me to figure this out, like it's just, there's that community and culture of giving and sharing and helping. And that alone is worth its weight in gold. Never mind the membership that our members pay. But I did want to talk about one other thing, FEPPA. So in my talk, as you guys know, we're really big on client avatars, aren't we? Like if you don't know who you're talking to, well, how can you market to them? If you don't know what they want from their photographic experiences, how can you provide that? If you don't know their story, how can you communicate with them? And in the room, and this happens nearly everywhere I go, right? So this is not just a VPPA membership, right? But I ask a question like I do every time I speak. So how many of you have created your client avatars? Or even one client avatar? Now there's 120 odd people in the room, right? How many hands went up, do you think?
I'm going to guess not very many.
There was 5. 5 hands went up, right? And there may have been a 6th one that I didn't get to count, but like a tiny percentage, right? And you say to yourself, right, so if you're in a photography business and you don't know who your ideal client is, imagine the difference it would make to your business if you did. Imagine the difference it would make to your marketing if you did. Imagine the difference it would make to the value delivered to your client if you did, and for me, I don't see that as a negative. I see that as, wow, look how this industry can grow. Look how every photographer can grow by just figuring out who do you serve? How do you serve them? How do they want to be served? Isn't that an amazing opportunity? Like we can literally amplify, as a collective industry, amplify the difference we make with photography to our clients by simply knowing who we're serving and why.
Well, it is exciting, Ronan. And, like when you say it's an exciting time to be alive, it, when you think about the tools that we now have before us, when you have the client focus in mind, it's thrilling to me what we can actually now do. And the learning, you know, and it just, I would like to think that most photographers, especially those listening to this podcast, have a growth mindset. They have because they're listening, right? And so they're wanting to improve their lives and they're wanting to improve their businesses. They want to improve their client journeys, their client experiences. And so now, like, you go back 50 years, what was there at your fingertips to be able to learn more? You had to travel to be able to do that, right? You couldn't just learn all the time. And now we can learn all the time and we have tools before us. And so it's interesting when you bring up the community. To me, even as mentors, we learn so much from those that we work with in the inner circle, right? You know, because everybody has their own little niches, their own little things that that they are experts in, right? Everybody, you know, we're not all the same. And so together as a group, what we can learn from each other is just phenomenal. And it allows us to, you row together and you row faster. So together we're able to move at an even faster pace because we share, we learn, and we all grow together. It's incredible.
And there was a speaker there, and we've talked about AI as well. I know we're going all over the place a little bit, but I think we're sharing our biggest takeaways, right? But there was a speaker there, and using AI and other workflow tools, he was explaining how his FaceTime on a wedding where he and his team take between 4,000 and 5,000 images, right? His total FaceTime on computer to get them into saleable images, right? So cropping, culling, all that stuff, right? Retouching and all is 30 minutes. That's correct. I didn't say 30 hours, 30 minutes. And he was making the point that he today now, rather than being able to do one wedding a week, he could do a wedding every day now if he wanted to because of technology. You know, and you just go, that's what it's all about. You know, that where we saw our value before as an industry and retouching and culling and cropping and all that stuff, right? We don't have to do that anymore.
We don't have to do it anymore.
And that's freeing up our time to deliver stuff that's of true value to our clients. That's why I'm excited.
Me too, Ronan. And it's interesting because to me, like with the future, with AI, with the tools that we have before us, it frees us up as humans, I guess, to do what we do best. And that's create, to innovate, to have leadership, to do, to talk and hug and love on our clients. It frees us up to have the time to do that. And to me, honestly, like bigger corporations were able to do that, right? Because you have a whole team of people before you and you can divvy out people. We're like solopreneurs, maybe dualpreneurs. And so oftentimes we get so bogged down in the doing of the cropping and the culling and the retouching. We'd spend hours doing that and not doing the things that really make an impact on our clients. And that's the conversations and the loving on and and all of the connections that we make with our clients on a one-to-one basis, right? Well, now we have that ability right in front of us. It's right there. We can offload so much to free up our time to do what only we can do. It gets me excited.
The biggest challenge I see, Jeanine, because I'm really excited too, and Jonathan's really excited, and everyone at Difference Maker is really excited about this. But I think the biggest challenge we have is many photographers have attached their value to the wrong thing. Rather than attaching their value to being able to hug their clients, that AI can't hug your client, right? That what AI can do, if you leave your value attached to culling and cropping and retouching and all of that stuff, well, then you're probably going to struggle. You have to realize that AI is going to replace all of that, whether you're on board with it or not. That's not where the value is going to be. So you actually have no choice if you want to create a sustainable, profitable business in our industry to adopt AI to do that workflow stuff, because your true value is being able to hug your clients.
Well, a photographer's true value is being able to help their clients to understand what's meaningful and valuable to them. That's where a photographer's true value is. And then guiding them through an experience to not only help their clients realize what's so valuable and meaningful to them, but then to help their clients create that in the studio when designing their artwork, so that they can help their clients create a representation of that meaningful, valuable every single day, so that it becomes priceless for our clients. That's where photographers' true value is helping their clients understand what's valuable to them.
Yeah. And the only way you can do that is to have the time to hug them, right? And so that you're focused on them and your mindset is focused on delivering them what they desire, rather than I'm going to spend 6 hours retouching this photo to make it the best photo on the planet.
That was an aha moment from the workshop, in that there was someone there who hadn't trained with, the difference maker revolution in any format before, who's a successful photographer, and they realized after that they were missing out on so much opportunity, and that they could be doing, double what they're actually doing, and that's what they want to do, because they realized when we went through and told a story of like a client that had bought a particular Saporito collection, the staircase collection, and we had a look at the photographs, and Steve told like the client's story behind the photographs. There's like 4 photos in the staircase collection, and each photo represents something that's meaningful to the client. So for instance, there's a photo on the bottom left, I'm looking at it here, that is a photo of the child's toes, right? And the story behind that photo is that in this family, the child's toes curve, or their toes tend to curve in a certain direction. So that photo represents the father's bloodline, and how, because of this, they know that, she's part of the family. She's one of us, she's there. That's, she's part of our family. The photo above that is a photo of the little girl hugging a teddy. And the story behind that was that grandma had waited 12 years for a granddaughter. And that, that this family struggled to have kids. And finally, after trying for 12 years, they had Roxy. And this was the teddy that grandma had given to Roxy. So that photo was, a representation of how precious Roxy is to grandma. And Steve told it way better than I could, but that gist of things. Then there's a photo on the top right of literally looking down on Roxy, and it's just a photograph of her eyelashes. And the story behind that is that Roxy has her mother's eyelashes, and every time that Dad looks at Roxy, he sees his wife in Roxy. And then the bottom photo is a photo, and these are all just shot on a plain black background, is Roxy on a chair and kind of turning around looking backwards. And the story behind that is that, what was important to Dad is that in their everyday life, Roxy is, up to a little bit of devilment, and she's always running away from Dad and getting Dad to come and catch her. But she always stops and looks back to make sure that Dad is, coming for her. So when Steve told these, the meaning, that meaning is important, and that meaning is invaluable. It's priceless to the clients who bought that staircase collection, and that's why they bought it. Because the photographer took the time to allow the clients to discover what's meaningful for them, allowed themselves to understand what's meaningful to the client so that they could photograph those details, and then infuse that meaning and detail into the photograph. So now the client has a representation of what's valuable to them every single day. That was really powerful.
I'm listening to the podcast. I get it, right? I know Jeanine has to go fly somewhere. So tell us, right? Tell us now. I want to learn this. What do I need to do?
So the best place for you to learn this is inside the Difference Maker Inner Circle. Okay, so all you have to do is click the link below, join us inside the Inner Circle. We cannot wait to see you in a thriving community of difference makers who are all focused on achieving their version of success and helping you to achieve your version of success.
We'll see you there. Bye for now.
Bye, everyone.
See you later.